there and how we...
loss of all jobs, and you're not seeing any new jobs that may be higher paying coming from AI. And I'll give you an example of exactly that. So people that used to look at the tops of Target stores and Walmart stores to look for every year cracks that they have to cover for insurance, that no longer is done by people going up ladders anymore. It's done by drones. And the people that fly the drones make 10 times more than the guys that went up the ladders.
So what happens to the people who went up the ladders?
Listen, the point is they...
No. I like a very specific question. So what happened? So that's my point. What happens to the people who went up the ladders?
They learned how to fly drones. That's what happened to them.
But
they
we're
know
not
the
investing
route.
in that.
They start making a lot more money. I mean, the point is, you make the...
The Trump administration is out there celebrating something that should honestly be ringing alarm bells. Kevin Hassett went on television and basically bragged that American consumers are firing on all cylinders because credit card spending is through the roof, and he's crediting this to Trump's tax policies on tips and overtime. But notice what's conveniently missing from that explanation: the tariffs that have cost the average American family over $1,700. Let's get into this segment, and I'll break down why this so-called good news is actually a warning sign.
Earnings call and people coming to the park could dictate the pulse of what average Americans were feeling. And I would argue that's not quite the case. I think most people are looking at the fact that their electricity bills are rising through the roof. I think that people elected Donald Trump so that their grocery prices would go down, and they have not seen that. I think people are talking about gas and fuel prices. I think most people are not necessarily talking about Disney per se, but instead they're talking about how to make their everyday ends meet. Of course, we are.
I mean,
Disney,
to your point, is a luxury item.
Luxury? I mean, yes. I went on a Disney cruise and realized I had to work more years just to pay for it. So, yes, I understand that.
Abby, I think Kevin said something that I think is a good point, and that has to do with confidence. People have some confidence about what's going on in the future. There were two numbers that came out this week that I think illustrate that. One is the ADP hiring report. They forecast 109,000 jobs added. The other thing was that the U.S. hiring rate jumped to 3.5% in March, which is a 22-month high, and we're still sort of in a, what do they call, low hire, low fire, so sort of a muted turnover in the labor market. So I think there are jobs being added. People aren't worried about necessarily losing their jobs. So I think what Kevin was, maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there is a little bit of confidence among the American workforce about, hey, my job is okay, and I feel good about the future.
Can I ask you both just a question? This is just a literal question. I'm kind of taking Abby's role, I guess. But how do you say that we are not necessarily losing jobs and their confidence in the job market, but yet talk about the bolstering of AI? Because a lot of the same people that we're talking about who are in these jobs that pay between minimum wage and maybe, $20 an hour, those are going to be the same jobs in the next 5 to 10 years that are going to be excommunicated because of AI. So what is the balance there, and how we...
loss of all jobs, and you're not seeing any new jobs that may be higher paying coming from AI. And I'll give you an example of exactly that. So people that used to look at the tops of Target stores and Walmart stores to...
Let's call this what it actually is. When the chief economic advisor to the President of the United States stands up with a big smile and tells you that rising credit card debt is a sign of a healthy economy, that should terrify you, not reassure you. Americans are now carrying close to $7,000 in credit card debt per person, with average interest rates sitting between 21 and 22%. Most people making minimum payments on that kind of balance are not climbing out of it anytime soon. That's not consumer confidence. That's people using plastic to cover the gap between what things cost now and what they can actually afford. And here's the part that really gets me. The administration wants credit for no tax on tips and no tax on overtime while completely ignoring the $1,700 hit that tariffs have put on the average family's wallet. You can't celebrate one column while pretending the other one doesn't exist. That's not an economic analysis. That's a magic trick. Look at this shiny thing over here. Ignore the bigger number over there. Now, one of the panelists tried to use Disney's earnings call as evidence that everything is fine. People are still going to theme parks despite high gas prices, so the economy must be strong. But come on, going to Disney is a luxury. Most Americans aren't measuring their financial health by whether they can afford a trip to a theme park. They're measuring it by their electricity bill, their grocery bill, their gas bill, the stuff you can't opt out of, And by every actual measure, those numbers are not moving in the right direction for working families. And here's something that should worry everyone, regardless of party. The reason the full weight of these tariffs hasn't completely crushed consumers yet is that about half of S&P 500 companies have been absorbing those costs themselves by using AI to boost their margins and productivity. So companies are using artificial intelligence to eat the cost of bad policy and keep their earnings looking great. Meanwhile, that same AI shift is exactly what's going to start replacing the jobs of the people we're supposedly protecting with these tariffs in the first place. One side of the panel tried to wave this away by saying people will just learn to fly drones instead of climbing ladders. That's a nice soundbite, but it completely ignores the real question. What happens to the people in the meantime? Retraining takes time, it takes resources, and most families don't have either of those things to spare. The same panelists who admitted most Americans don't even have $500 saved for an emergency is the same one telling us not to worry because everyone will just pivot to a higher-paying AI job. Those two things don't add up. And let's not forget what's actually competing for the federal government's attention and money right now. While families are drowning in credit card debt and just trying to keep up with groceries and gas, there's $1 billion being allocated for a ballroom, not healthcare, not childcare, not direct relief for the families. Everyone on that panel agrees are struggling. A ballroom, the bottom line is this: rising debt is not strength. Stagnant job growth in year one, followed by people clawing back through credit cards, is not a recovery. It's a delay of the reckoning. And when the people running the economy are out there smiling about how much debt Americans are taking on just to get by, that tells you everything about whose interests are actually being prioritized. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification. I'll see you in the next one.